Welcome back to the USC channel. Here at the Voice of College Football, it's USC Primetime Live, presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Crashlet Collier, joined by my co-host, Nolan Ezett. Nolan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I got a exciting slate of topics today, and as we get closer, I don't want to say closer to football season, but I guess it technically is closer every week. Gets me a little more excited away from this miserable basketball season and closer in the football season.
For sure. I actually did drive down to South Carolina last night from Virginia for the game. Brutal one, but definitely great to catch up with the Trojan family down there in Columbia. So still had a good time though. But other than that, pretty much, yeah, let's get into our first topic of the day. And that topic is, well, it was last week, and I'm sure most of you have heard about it by now, but I think it's worth bringing up. Matt Leinart talking about how he will not let anyone other than his kids wear his number 11 at USC. So if someone asks him for number 11, he's saying, absolutely effing not. What are your thoughts on that, Nolan?
I mean, it's relatively unprecedented to ask someone to unretire their jersey, right? And especially for a program like USC where you had a lot of success, but you're actually pretty conservative with whose jersey you retire, right? Like I can think of, especially pro teams, a lot of them are kind of quick to retire, especially if you had a lot of success. Kind of quick to retire players' jerseys, and at some point you're gonna run out of jerseys, right? You're gonna run out of jersey numbers. USC basically, if you don't win a Heisman, your number is not retired. There's so many numbers to choose from. Like I don't mind Liner saying no, especially because he's one of easily the better quarterbacks of the semi-modern age in college football, and especially in terms of resume, one of the best. Right? You don't just you're not just a Heisman winner. You won 2 national championships. That's about as good as it gets. So asking him to unretire his jersey, because USC has in the past. That's a tall order for anyone. Like once you retire their jersey, it's up there, and especially for someone like him, Heisman, 2 national championships. You don't unretire that guy's jersey. So yeah, give him his props.
For sure. And I think I can think of two examples that in USC history that come to mind. Maybe there are a couple more that I can think of, but the two that come to mind are Mike Garrett allowing Darnell Bing to wear his number 20 for his senior year only. So that was basically a reward for being dedicated to the program for 4 years. That was his reward. He'd been there 3, stayed for the 4th grade. You couldn't really transfer, but for everything he put in, Garrett told Bing, okay, you can wear my 20. That one is valid. I completely support Mike Garrett doing that, especially if it's a guy who's, been there for 4 years. The one that I think USC was kind of like, all right, we got to, pull out all the stops to get this guy, even if, it is 1 year, is Jordan Addison wearing Carson Palmer's number 3. And I think that one, I get why they did it, and I can see why Palmer would be behind it. Obviously, they got, Addison to say he'd, quote, work his tail off, according to Palmer and all that. They got like the statements and all. But at the same time, Addison left after 1 year. And I wouldn't say, obviously, he was always going to probably do that, leave after 1 year. Where I don't think it looks good is the fact that ever since he got in the NFL, Addison hasn't always looked the best for the Trojan family. So that's why I think that one also doesn't exactly reflect too well, especially if it's 1 year. And Leinart's concern is, what if a recruit comes in, some top-notch quarterback, and then skips town? Like, this is the example I made on Behind the Caution tape yesterday was, let's say Hassan Longstreet, when he came into USC, he was obsessed with number 11. Just bear with me on the example here. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to be great. I'm a Trojan forever. And pretty much, and guess what? Everything that happened with USC goes down. He gets rubbed the wrong way by the coaching staff, and then ultimately leaves for LSU. Literally, the scenario Leinart is hoping to avoid happens. So for that reason, I completely support it. And it's, you know what? I am completely fine with the 3 exceptions he's making for his 3 sons if they were ever to come to USC. And right now it's looking like Cole seems pretty happy at SMU. So I don't see 11 getting worn anytime soon, if you're asking me. And I completely support Leinart.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, using the Jordan Addison example, even though Addison was very successful and was obviously the go-to guy on that offense, you mentioned his NFL career so far, and even though he's been a strong player, he hasn't necessarily been a star, and he's had off the field issues, and that kind of almost doesn't do the number 3 that he wore at USC justice. But even just looking at his time at USC, like, yes, he was a very good receiver. Was he like the generational talent? Was he one of the generational talents in college football? I wouldn't say so. Like, I almost think even if his NFL career was off to a really strong start, I don't think he did number 3 justice. And it's not a knock against him, but you're wearing the number of one of the most decorated USC Trojans ever. Like, I think no matter what, you don't unretire someone's jersey who had the success of any of these players that we're talking about and give it to someone during their first year with the program, whether they're a transfer from Pitt and they're going to be good, or whether it's a recruit out of high school. I don't think, like, I think out of principle you don't unretire a jersey, and especially with someone who hasn't played a single snap on that offense. Why would you ever give that number to someone? And yeah, this comment's exactly right. You're 17 years old. You don't have the right to wear the jersey number of one of the best USC Trojans ever, who won 2 national championships and a Heisman. You don't have that right.
Shout out Jose for this comment. I hope I'm saying your name right. And then also Jose just followed up with, "Sorry, kid, you aren't bigger than the program." Amen. So I just wanted to throw those up there. Thought they were, relevant to what you're saying, but yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to.
Yeah, there's over 90 numbers to choose from. Like, have at it. Like, just don't wear number 11, number 3, a couple others. It's not
20,
not typical.
32,
20.
5, 13. What other ones am I missing? I should know this. 33, right?
It's what, only? Yeah, and then sounds like you're missing one, I think. But yeah, I mean, there's
8 total numbers retired now.
Yeah, and you got 7, I think, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But pretty much it's like, and USC, it's not like, oh, we're just, impulsively retiring numbers because you're Deion Sanders' kid. Like, that example just is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Like, Travis Hunter, you know what? I can get behind that one. He won the Heisman. Whether or not you think he deserved it or not, I know there's a lot of controversy around it, as it kind of is. As I feel like there's kind of been somewhat ever since Caleb Williams won it. There's kind of been some controversy surrounding the 3 Heisman winners that have since followed him.
Yeah.
But pretty much the bar's got to be either you got to be a damn good player at your school where you just miss out on it. Like, case in point, I got no problem with San Diego State retiring Marshall Faulk's 28. I actually happened to be at that game when it was retired since my dad went there. But pretty much my point is Faulk came up just short, and obviously San Diego State, they don't have the same tradition as USC, but still being a Heisman finalist at a school like that and just being still one of the best players, I think that warrants retirement. But that's obviously San Diego State. But just the Shedeur Sanders one, that's laughable. Especially when you look at all the great players before you who wore that number, who wore number 2. Like I said, Travis Hunter, okay, I can get it. People saying, oh, it's premature, but he won a Heisman at least. Shedeur Sanders didn't get drafted till the 5th round and was basically relying on Skip Bayless's man crush to get playing time.
And for the second that he was thrown around in the Heisman debates, it was because at the time, the guys he was, being thrown around with, kind of a weak Heisman race, at least at that point anyway. Like, I just, and especially as a quarterback, you should not be getting your jersey retired unless you win a Heisman. Like, maybe there's a stronger argument. Again, going back to Marshall Faulk, if you're a running back, and especially with a smaller program, if you don't win the Heisman, maybe you get your jersey retired. But if you're a quarterback at, I guess, Colorado, maybe not the name that USC is, but still a strong name. They're a power school. If you don't win the Heisman, why are we talking about retiring your jersey? You don't win the Heisman, you don't win a national championship, you really don't have any postseason success, and then you're drafted in the 5th round. Kind of an embarrassment to retire that number. That's a number that should come out of retirement. for a 17-year-old. I'll say that. That's a number that can get unretired.
I forget what it was. I think it was John Canzano might have had the best tweet on that whole scenario situation when it went down. Was he's like, after Shedeur, I think, didn't go the first day. He might have sent even on day 2 or 3. After day 2 or after day 1 or day 2, he just said Shedeur Sanders should just consider withdrawing from the draft and going back to college. Oh wait, his number's already retired. That's not exactly what Canzano said, but pretty close. I almost just called him Johnny Cans. Petros Papadakis always calls him that, so that's now stuck in my head. But yeah, Canzano basically just said, yeah, he's kind of trapped because they retired his number and he didn't go where he thought he would go.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great tweet.
Yeah. Yeah, some tweets, it's like when they hit, it's like you do not stop laughing. And that was one that had me just rolling around.
Well, and I almost thought like, I don't know, like Caleb, USC was very quick to honor him. But Caleb was one of the best Heismans we've had in a long time, and had a really, really bad defense that did everything it could to take away from his success. And I almost thought USC was moving prematurely with, in general, most of its honors that it had towards Caleb. But yeah, now it's like,
I mean, while they recognize it being retired in 2022 on the Coliseum, they didn't officially really unveil it, or like they didn't really celebrate or put it up in the Coliseum until after he left in 2024. And the whole time, even after the year after he won it, and then the year after he left, Mason Cobb both wore 13 for those 2 years. So I'm not sure if Caleb had to sign off on that or what went down there. I know someone else was wearing 13, I think, the year he showed up on defense. Obviously, he took it from Michael Jackson III. But I do know that Mason Cobb wore it even after he won the Heisman, which did mean 13 was going up in the Coliseum. So
yeah,
I'm not sure the process of what that went down. It kind of seemed like he signed off on it, especially considering right when Cobb got here, he was going to media day with Williams. But still definitely a very, interesting case to follow for sure about like when exactly does it count and like when they celebrate it. So I think you could say, yeah, it's labeled 2022 in the Coliseum, but it wasn't celebrated until the end of the 2024 season. So do factor that in.
Yeah, that's true. And that is an interesting point, that the number is being worn between those 2 time periods. He had to have signed off on that. There's no way you're going to retire someone's jersey and surprise, someone else is wearing your number. Even
if it technically isn't up in the Coliseum yet. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah, if you're preparing to retire someone's jersey, and I mean, it's almost surprising that I mean, I don't know. I commend him for letting someone else wear the jersey. Because yeah, I assumed they let him know, or rather not let him know. I hope they didn't just let him know.
For sure, Mario Hidalgo in the chat. Retire forever. Nothing is sacred with Young. Sad. ... Sad emoji. So definitely, especially people in the chat. Definitely our viewers tonight clearly have some strong opinions on this for sure. I think we can agree on that, Nolan. And I feel like anyone, I think the thing that's interesting about this is regardless of kind of where you stand on the transfer portal, NIL, I think a lot of us can agree that, you know what, retired numbers are sacred. Leave them the hell alone.
Yeah, it's like, I just, the whole point of it, like when someone is in retirement, the point is you're done working, you're retired. And then, yeah, I guess occasionally people come out of retirement, but usually that's, they just want to keep themselves busy. It's not like they retire from their job and then, 5 years later, they're back at the same company. That's what a jersey retirement is. You retire the jersey. It is no longer in play. Unless you're, the New York Yankees with, what are they, 27 World Series, I don't know how Hall of Famers. Maybe at some point with, as old as baseball is in this country, at some point they might run out of numbers. Maybe the Lakers, maybe the Celtics, maybe years down the line, USC football will have gone through 99 jerseys that are retired. until we get to that point, why unretire a jersey? I just don't get it. If it was never that sacred, shouldn't have retired it to begin with.
Jeff Rodriguez now popping in the chat with a word. If we get more Heismans, it's going to be hard to keep all these numbers retired. That being said, a kid not coming to school because of a number is dumb. Carson gave permission to use his, by the way. And we definitely touched on the Addison one, but still, I do agree. Like Carson Palmer did give permission to Addison, but still, it's kind of the scenario that I think Leinart is trying to avoid. So I think it's definitely, an interesting one to see. And there are interesting times where you do make an exception depending on if someone's wearing it. Obviously, they made an exception for, you bring up the Yankees with Mariano Rivera getting to finish out his career with 42 because he was going to get it retired for the stellar career that he had with the Yankees, even though they'd already announced that 42 had been retired across the entire MLB.
One thing that I like, it's the Cowboys, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 88 is not retired. What they do is, you got Michael Irvin, now then you had Dez, now obviously you got CD Lamb. I believe it's not retired. It's not like they unretire it every time they give it to a new star. It's basically, you need, I forget exactly what it is, but like all those star receivers for the number 88, all of them have to give you permission to wear that jersey. So if there's a number that you want to keep re-giving, especially to like the same positional group, I think that was the most creative way that I've ever seen it done. And I know that's, the NFL, not college, but same thing. If there's a jersey that you want to keep giving, don't retire it, but have those star players give permission. Once a jersey is retired, it's retired. 55 for us, but they won't use it. Yeah.
Well, Jeff Rodriguez brings that up. Obviously, Willie McGinnis being maybe at least comes to mind, obviously. Some of you Trojan family who have obviously been following the Trojans longer than me. Obviously, Willie McGinnis is the first 55 that comes to mind. Obviously, there have been others, but I know there's 55. And I believe a couple other numbers that are kind of held on reserve for players. I'm not sure exactly what the permission standard is, but I do like that one. Another one I learned this year actually was what LSU does with the number 18. So I'm not sure, for those who are unaware, quarterback Garrett Nussmeier was number 13 in 2024 when the Tigers played the Trojans in Las Vegas. But then the year afterwards, I see on College Game Day as they're hyping up, I think it was what everyone thought would have been one of the top matchups of the year before, both teams completely flamed out and LSU then fired Brian Kelly in maybe the most ugly way ever, or maybe kind of a pathetic way. I think what was interesting about that was Nussmeier wore 18. I was like, wait, why did he switch his number? And it turns out 18 is the number that's worn. Like, that's just the number they have for like essentially like the team leader. It's like it's voted on by the team that you get to wear 18. And I think it's the first time a quarterback's worn it. And I think in like over 2 decades, if I read that correctly. I don't remember exactly, but they have that's what they do with at least the number 18. I don't know much else about how the rest of LSU's numbers work. The only person I could think to ask, who at the moment is obviously not available because he's not on the show, is Senior Associate Athletic Director Cody Warsham at USC, who went to LSU and worked there for numerous years before coming to USC, I believe, in April or May 2024. So I just found that interesting to see that what LSU does. So obviously it's just interesting to see like what programs or teams will do with certain numbers if they can't necessarily retire it. So it is cool what you brought up with the Cowboys tradition. I'll have to ask my brother about it. He's a pretty diehard Cowboys fan. Jeff thinks that LSU should be using Joe Burrow's number instead of 18. I forget why it's 18, but that's just the number they choose.
Yeah, it's probably some star back in the day, and now it's tradition.
Yep, especially at a place like LSU. Interesting to see who's going to be wearing 18 for LSU now with Lane Kiffin in charge. So might be keeping my eye on that. But yeah, so definitely interesting to see kind of how this will go and honestly would like to hear from those of you watching the show if you want to put in, of the Heisman numbers retired by USC, which one do you think has the probability of being unretired next? So I'd be very curious to hear what our listeners and viewers think of that. So put your numbers in the chat and I'll definitely pop them up throughout the show as we move on into our next segment. What do you think, Nolan? Which one would you call most likely?
Well, sounds like it's not 11. But I don't see anyone unretiring their jersey. I think USC is going to have to like forcefully do it. I don't understand why anyone would, especially any of the the older jerseys that were Pete Carroll era or earlier. So if I had to give something, it'd be 13, because if Caleb let someone wear his jersey and he's the most recent retiree, I mean that'd be my guess.
I might go with number 5, honestly, Reggie Bush.
And
I would
really?
just think with kind of just some of the stuff seems like there's a bit of bad blood going on with Reggie Bush and USC. So I wouldn't be surprised if Reggie Bush would, sign off on a recruit who wanted to wear 5.
I think it's more Reggie Bush in the NCAA than USC.
Well, USC is tied up in one of those lawsuits because I think they wouldn't pay his legal fees. I mean, I'm hazy on the details of it, but it sounds like he's upset. I think because was he supposedly supposed to lead the team out of the tunnel? I think it was last year after they were able to retire it, but then so I'm not sure exact. So, but still, it just seems like he's just not happy with USC right now. So I know USC's tied up in one of his lawsuits. So definitely going to be interesting to see kind of what everyone thinks and which number will go first, if ever. Hopefully it's none of them. I think it's like you said, when you retire in general, obviously, some people just still, can't sit still. I'm probably going to be one of those people, knowing myself. Especially, it's part of why I was like, I love my job right now with Cosmic Baseball. Had a great tour in Jacksonville this weekend, going to Birmingham in the morning for 3 games. But anyways,
triple header.
Yeah, that's most of them. But anyways, it's like you said, though, when something or someone is retired, they are done. I think you said it best. And then, yeah, Maniac says, I'm not a fan of unretiring, but I do like the idea that if a player or the family allow a star player their senior season to wear a retired number honoring the legacy of said player, I don't hate it. That's basically what I believe Mike Garrett was doing when he allowed Darnell Bing to wear number 20. I think it clearly still honored Garrett, and Bing put in his 3 years of work to earn the right to wear it. So I feel like that's a bit of a different scenario. So I'd be curious, though, if Matt Leinart would ever, probably is no, but I'd be curious if he saw someone busting their butt for 3 years and they always had wanted to wear number 11, would he let them then?
Yeah, I mean, that's to me the only acceptable answer that has anything to do with unretiring. If you're like Trojan since day one, and eventually you get to a Heisman level caliber, but you've been working ever since then, you're giving your jersey to someone to honor their senior season, and they're going to do it justice. What I'm not a fan of is having a 17 or 18-year-old high school senior who is now entering his freshman year, and you have no clue what he's going to do. It just so happens he's a 5-star from Mater Dei, and he thinks he can get what he wants. All the respect to Mater Dei athletes, but just because you went to Mater Dei doesn't mean you're going to be a Heisman.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the comment that I just put back up from Jose, the first comment we got of the night, Nolan, that just is, what part of retired number do these 17-year-old punks not understand? I mean, punk, a little strong there with the wording, but I get where you are coming from, Jose. So not holding that against you, but definitely interesting word choice. I will point that I did have to point that out. I'm not critiquing it, though, so please don't take that as a criticism, but did kind of want to,
I agree with the word choice. If you're walking into one of the most, if not the most decorated college football programs, and then you're taking one of their 8 retired jerseys, one of their 8 most decorated football athletes ever, and saying, I want to wear his jersey, even though no one has since him, whether that's been 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that's a huge ask for someone who has not proved a single thing in their college career. So I don't think that's a stretch at all.
I'm not like I said, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just like, all I'm saying is it's an interesting word choice. It probably isn't the word choice I'd have gone with if we, Jose, all I'm saying is if we were flipped, if I was the one on the computer and I was watching you and Nolan talking right now, I probably wouldn't be typing. I probably would, if I was typing what you said and trying to get the same, convey the same message, I just probably wouldn't use punk, is all I'm saying. But
That's
like I
fair.
said, not hating on the word choice at all, but just definitely, I think that second time really, kind of struck me as like, damn, okay. But yeah, let's now move into our FanDuel segment. And we will be talking a bit of March Madness. Obviously, USC women's basketball going down, so basketball is over. So, but we will still stay in college basketball for now and talk about. We'll stay in the Big Ten, in fact, and go to a newish rivalry of where it does seem the blood is heating up, and we're going to talk about Nebraska, Iowa in the Sweet 16. Huskers are 1.5 favorites. Money line minus 134 for the Huskers, 112 for the Hawkeyes, and then the over/under on the game is 132.5. What's your take on these odds?
I hadn't watched a ton of basketball between either of these two opponents, but I know there was that exciting overtime matchup between the two during the regular season, which that's the one I think Nebraska won. And I think there was one earlier in the year where Iowa won. So these teams are
both teams won on their home courts.
Yeah, and so these teams are very evenly matched. You have an overtime matchup, and that kind of says everything you need to. Just because of the fact that Iowa's the underdog, I'd take them. I'd rather take better odds. It seems like they're very evenly matched. I imagine just the fact that it's a 4 versus a 9 seed is really swaying public money over to Nebraska, which is helping get some better odds with Iowa. So I'd take Nebraska, I'd take Iowa. Even though I think both teams are very evenly matched.
I think Nebraska is going to win outright. I think they've definitely found rhythm, and I think especially if you went to the USC Nebraska basketball game, you could see just how much Husker Nation just took over Galen Center. It was brutal. Like I was back home in California that weekend, so decided to pull up with my parents, and damn, there are a lot of Huskers there, and they show out. They have their "Go Big Red" chant. And even just the way they were all rallied. I mean, maybe you saw the video that went viral of their volleyball team in the air watching the basketball team beat Vanderbilt to advance to the program's first ever Sweet 16, second ever March Madness win. So you got to give a lot of credit to what Fred Hoiberg has done there. And then obviously Iowa too, quickly bouncing back after moving on from Fran McCaffrey after I think he was there for about 15 seasons. So I think the Huskers are win. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. So really interested for this one. Obviously, rivalry game. But definitely, I chose this game, Nolan, really just because it just shows these two programs are clearly trending in the right direction, whereas obviously USC has been kind of stuck. Obviously, you got some recruits, but looks like you will have at least one assistant coach gone this year with Todd Lee reportedly finalizing a deal to take over Cal State Bakersfield as their next head coach. So definitely going to be some changes up on the staff and probably another overhauled lineup again, roster again. We'll see which key pieces return and then who stays. So hopefully USC can hold on to their roster. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of overhaul, especially with how the whole Cam Woods thing went down.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I will say about this matchup, the other thing that compels me to take Iowa, other than the fact that it seems like they're very evenly matched, so the simple answer to me is just pick who gives you the better odds, is the story of Iowa in March, as it stands right now, seems like it's better than Nebraska because they just took down the defending champions and still one of the 4 number 1 seeds in the tournament, whereas Nebraska was literally an inch away from not playing in this game from one of the nerdiest schools in the tournament. I know they're a good nerdy team. You don't expect Vanderbilt to be a good team. They are this year, football and basketball somehow. But they are an inch away from not competing in this game. Nebraska, that is. Iowa is really, really hot. I know Florida also just never had it together in that game. It seemed like Florida lost it as much as Iowa won it. But I wouldn't bet against someone that just took down a number 1 team. I wouldn't do it.
That's a valid point. Definitely, I mean, if you can beat a 1 seed, especially that early too, because best point last year, Florida was a 1 seed And obviously, yeah, there's some controversy in, at least, well, mainly from just Dan Hurley, but in how they took down UConn. But then again, Dan Hurley's just antics were just on another level last year. And because they weren't winning at the standard that UConn demands, everyone took notice. But that was why he got away with it for 2 years. Wasn't that it was probably doing just the same thing, but they won natties, so nobody cared. But slight drop off. St. John's is back with Rick Pitino, really getting that program going. That's a team I wouldn't bet against. And I mean, we'll just see what happens. And then, but now you obviously, I think that's kind of why I think Hurley's antics were more on display. Obviously, he's got UConn back in the Sweet 16 after after he took down UCLA and Mick Cronin in what social media was calling. You'll have to look it up. I'm not going to say it right here. I don't think it's appropriate for our show to be saying it, so I will not. Go look it up on Instagram. Just look up Mick Cronin versus Dan Hurley bowl game name or something like that, or just look up crazy angry bald coaches or something like that. And then throw Kevin Willard in there while you're at it. That guy, oh my gosh, I can't stand him. But yeah, honestly, and then who do you have win it? Who did you put to win all of March Madness even before this? Nolan, I'm kind of now curious as we're talking about it for a minute.
Yeah, I had Duke, which was an interesting choice for me because in general, I favor experience, both with older players, but also players that have been on the same squad playing together for a while. That's why, I mean, two of the best examples that I have are last year I had Florida winning it, and obviously that worked out well. And then the other best example that I have of when that worked out was when Zion and RJ and that Duke squad lost to Michigan State. With Cassius Winston, and that whole squad played together for a couple of years. I had Michigan State beating them, which they did, which was a huge shock to anyone that I was in a bracket league with, because Duke was picked by 50% of the entire population to win the whole thing. But I just think experience really matters. When I was looking at it this year, to me, it was between Arizona and Duke. And while Arizona does have quite a bit of experience, I don't see any team who has played, all together for 3 or 4 years completely. And Duke is just so good. They're so good. So I took Duke, but to me, it's Duke, not to be boring, but I really think Duke and Arizona are clearly the two best teams. I'm not buying Michigan. Not at all. Who'd you take?
I went Arkansas beats St. John's. I think
Wow.
we're gonna see another addition in the Calipari Patino series. I don't know. I think the way just Arkansas won the SEC championship, combined with I think just the way Calipari has just been coaching ever since he left Kentucky, dude has just been motivated as hell. I think he wants to win another natty, and I think just coming to Arkansas, they're giving him unlimited resources, and I think he's just coaching on another level. He wants to. I know he was all diplomatic and all when he left Kentucky, but I think he's just out to prove something. So I think I'm calling for some upsets, and I think Arkansas is gonna beat Arizona. So I'm really interested to see just kind of these Sweet 16 matchups. So obviously, I know we're talking a little bit about basketball, but just obviously it's big time. Everyone's got your office pools. We're doing one with Cosmic, so kind of needing the Hogs to come through if I'm gonna pull through and finish respectably or even win it, because I think I'm the only one who went with Arkansas. So as long as they win and everyone, all the other big picks go down early, I'm probably got a good shot to win. So it's gonna be a big weekend.
Arkansas is a bold pick. I was at the SEC championship because I was in Nashville for those couple of days. So I figured why not go. And I will say, what I saw from that team, especially Acuff, it's that could be a really scary team, really, really scary team, but still really bold to take a 4 seed to win it all. But what a pick that would be.
Hey, it's happened before. It'll definitely happen again. Just the question will be when.
There you go.
But yeah, now let's move back to USC football. And Nolan, I want to start with with what you actually brought to my attention, or brought, obviously suggested we talk about, which was this graphic that USC football put up earlier today, or was it? Yeah, or about an hour ago, and it was the most returning starters in the Big Ten: 9 on offense, 8 on defense, so 17 total starters. So, Nolan, what are your thoughts on this? Especially since I'll let you have the floor on this one, since you really were like, this is something we should talk about.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of what I was talking about with March Madness in college basketball, but I just really, really value continuity and having guys who are experienced and playing together. And in college basketball, I think it matters a little more because it gives you a stronger competitive edge when all the other competitors have, your one and dones. It's what Duke always has and a lot of other blue bloods. In football, maybe it's not as bad because you got to play 3 years. It's just a matter of now the transfer portal. But having the most returning starters in college football is, or at least I think of any power conference school, huge plus, especially with one of those returning starters being the quarterback. Even though I've made my opinion clear, I think Longstreet was the right move for the future. For the sake of next year, having your quarterback returning and having the largest number of supporting cast members of any program in either college football or just power conferences, that is humongous. Like humongous. Does it mean that you have the most talented players? Not necessarily. Does it mean you have the most draft picks? Not necessarily. But it means on the field at the college level, your offensive line, that's the biggest one, but also, just in general, defense, your linebacking unit, your defensive line, secondary, whoever it may be, they know how to play together. They know how to be coached by this coaching staff. Although I guess USC's got a new defensive coaching staff, so maybe that doesn't matter, but it's huge. It's huge to me. I think it makes a big difference. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I don't think anyone would say it doesn't matter, but do you think this is as big as I'm making it out to be?
For sure. I mean, obviously, you hit on the one that I was going to talk about. All 5 offensive linemen. Now, whether or not they look the same is going to be up to question. But the fact you got all 5 coming back is huge. And I think it matters much more in football than basketball, especially in March when it's just one and done. And you can have a guy that's hot. Who's the Oakland guy who just said, oh, I'm not going to the NBA, but on any given night, I can play with those guys. And then, of course, Oakland goes down and beats Kentucky, sends Cal off to Arkansas.
Yeah, Golke. He had 10 threes in that one game?
Yeah. Yeah, dude's a legend just because of that. For his quote and for just raining threes on the Wildcats. But I think this I was going to really focus on the defense because I think, honestly, well, my position on when D'Anton Lynn left for Penn State, I wasn't necessarily happy about it, but I also wasn't upset about it. And obviously, D'Anton Lynn was definitely a huge improvement from Alex Grinch. That goes without saying. But at the same time, it just felt like the defense had that potential to take that next step and just didn't. Obviously, Nolan, before you showed up, and I've done it but once for you, me, Matt, and Ethan would go off on Rob Ryan. I do my Rob Ryan impression. Everything's gonna be awesome. And Matt and Ethan would go off. We'd all just basically, the one coach where just like, he needs to go. Like I said, I think it's smart he's in more of an analyst role, not so much as hands-on as he was, because I think he still has a lot of knowledge. I just don't think he was the right guy for that job. I think Mike Eckler, as we've talked about, is much better for both the linebackers and the special teams. But I think with the defensive staff coming in under Gary Patterson and the guys that he's like, all right, here are the guys I need to bring in. I know they're hoping to bring someone in, and I get Patterson was kind of willing to be like, all right, let's kind of see how this works out. But I do like that, when Patterson realized he needed to, he's like, all right, we're bringing this guy in, that guy's got to go. Patterson put his foot down and was firm when he needed to be. So I really think I like that Lincoln Riley, had enough respect for Gary Patterson to know, all right, I got to listen to this guy if I want my defense to improve. And I think having 8 defensive guys returning is going to be a solid starters returning is a solid foundation that I think can really build depth and just have a really strong, just not just any position group, but just a strong defensive unit altogether that I think can be really good, especially with just the reputation Patterson brings and just the guys you got coming back. So I think I'm really when I pulled this graphic up, I really zeroed in on the 8 defensive guys, especially with what they're going to learn and how they'll develop under Gary Patterson. That really excites me there, especially with the fact that he's got to bring in a lot of the guys that he wanted and knew would help him succeed.
The other thing that excites me is if you're bringing. So actually, last I checked, it was 15. I'm glad now. I mean, it's 17. I know also some sites have been reporting on every college football program, and then it's like, well, what's a starter, right? Like, I mean, King Miller didn't, start. He wasn't a starter to start the year, so it's like, how do you measure it?
I mean, to be fair, these could be a little inflated, and obviously, the schools are going to, convenience the truth in their favor. So I'm not going to say that this graphic is right or wrong, but I'm just saying you might want to take it with a bit of grain of salt because obviously USC is going to make themselves look good in that regard. But regardless of what the number is, the point remains the same. That's it's huge that it's like the most guys coming back to the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's whether the number is 15, which is what I was reading on CBS. I think USC is saying 17. Every site that I've seen, regardless of how they're measuring it, regardless of what they consider a starter to be, USC is always atop the list. And what really excites me about that is that this year USC should be performing better with this talent that have played together versus an equivalent level of talent but that have not played together. So that helps this year. But when you have the number 1 recruiting class and they're not quite ready yet to all be starters, you have that group that have played together this year so that next year when a lot of them are gone, now you have that recruiting class who have a year under their belt playing with each other. And so to me, it just kind of creates this funnel and this cycle that's, you have a group of guys, as long as you can retain them, play well together for a couple of years. Now they're off. So now you have this new group of guys that have already been together for a year or two, and now they're ready to step in to the big man's shoes. So that's what actually really excites me. If USC can retain all their younger guys, you have this continuous cycle going now.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely, really, I think it's great for the program and everything going on. So I think that's, huge, like you said, especially with this recruiting class coming in, especially if keep stability with the defensive coaching. Because as far as I can tell, this is probably Gary Patterson's last job. I think it's like we talked, I think it was either I mentioned with Ethan or a couple weeks ago. We basically, the discussion was Gary Patterson just wants, call plays. He basically wants to just do what Chip Kelly's trying to do now. Just lock themselves in a room, watch film, then go out and cook on game day. So I think this will probably be Gary Patterson's last job, but I could see him wanting to, be here for a decent amount of time too. I think that's kind of some of those coaches who've had those legendary careers and they got that one last itch to scratch and they just want to, really, make the most of it. So I think Patterson, could be here for a minute. It kind of reminds me, I think, like I said, the other example that comes to mind, and we can definitely get into this one in a minute after we talk about a couple other things, is the whole Kyle Whittingham now at Michigan, and we can definitely talk about that scenario. But before we do, I do want to mention, I think we should talk about just what are the implications of Wayman Jordan being out injured for the rest of spring ball and likely suiting up for summer camp.
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me is all that I could find was when Lincoln was saying he needs to, quote, clean up, kind of that injury that he had last year, or at least one of the lingering effects in his ankle. What was unclear to me was, did he re-aggravate something and now he's forced out? Or are they just kind of proceeding with caution and saying, he's had enough this camp. That's all. That's all we need from him. Let's let him rest. I'm not sure exactly what it is, and it's a little concerning if he maybe re-aggravated something. But if USC is just, or rather Lincoln is just being cautious about it and saying, just rest up, continue resting, I'm all for that. I'm not sure if you've heard anything different, but I really haven't heard clarity on what exactly is happening.
That's pretty much what I just heard, that he was just shut down. So I think on the one hand, if it does turn out to be an injury, I'd be concerned. But if it's just, they're just, saying like, all right, we know what he can do already. Especially too, I mean, I think Cody Kessler made this point the best when they were recruiting him and brought him in. It's like, oh, he's at JUCO. What's he gonna do? Cody Kessler on the Victory podcast just said, I've seen his tape, and Cody just, I've worked with Cody when I was interning for Keely Orr last year and producing the Victory podcast. Cody Kessler nerds out over film like nobody's business. Dude's like, but it's like you love the guy for it. And he's like, he's his authentic self, and he knows his stuff, though. He's not just BSing around. Cody Kessler knows ball. And pretty much what he said was, yeah, I saw his tape. It's going to completely translate. And guess what? He called it. Like, until Waymo went down, he was tearing it up, just like Kessler predicted. So I guess from that standpoint, they know what he can do. So I don't think they're too worried. So it might be that, but still the fact that it is. And I think Trojan Fight brings up a good point of there has to be somewhere that this is going to linger into the season. That injury 6 months ago, you would hope he was healthy by now, but clearly not. So I think Trojan Fight brings up a good point of, if this is what's happening, is he fully healthy? Were they trying to get through it? What's going on? Is it something else? So, excuse me. I think it's definitely something you'd need to be. I think we definitely need to have eyes on for sure about of what's going to be Jordan's status, because USC is going to need him to compete, especially with the brutal schedule they got coming up. I mean, they got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana. And those are just the 5 toughest ones. Who knows what the rest could be? I mean, you got Wisconsin on the road. You got UCLA under Bob Chesney. We'll see what that turns into. So there's some tough matchups on this schedule this year. So you're going to need Waymo at full strength for this season.
Yeah. And I like what Trojan Fight was saying, because there was a point where what we heard during the year was that he was possibly going to suit up at the end of the year, right? Like there were rumors that he could possibly be suiting up late into the year. That didn't happen, and that's okay, right? Maybe you're a couple of weeks behind schedule. But now we are so far removed from that injury, like Trojan Fight saying 6 months ago, that to me, worst case scenario is he re-aggravated something, and now he's going to be dealing with an injury during the year. Best case scenario is he's just behind schedule. If he was supposed to suit up, if he was possibly going to be able to suit up during that same year where he got injured, and now Lincoln feels like he has to even just be cautious. The fact that he even feels that when it's been months since he once thought he might suit up means he's behind schedule. And to me, that's the best case scenario. And the fact that that's the best case scenario is concerning.
Definitely a red flag there, I think. And I think it's, something that I'm sure USC is going to get a lot of questions about. We'll continue to get a lot of questions about. And it's what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying I have full trust in King Miller. He clearly proved himself last year, especially in, obviously, regardless of how Michigan looked on offense, and just, the fact that, their head coach was, kind of cuckoo and kind of crazy, and, was going to get fired for cause at the end of the year because his affair got exposed, and, basically it was, disgrace, which I just don't understand how you do that when you have maybe one of the best jobs in America. Let's just put it at that, both in terms of like status and, of course, compensation. But anyways, even still, Michigan always has good defense, and that's obviously, they were definitely brutal in the trenches, and King Miller just comes in and slices them up. Sure, they haven't been the same since Jim Harbaugh came in, but still, just the fact that Miller's able to come in and just be a huge stabilizing force in that running back room as a walk-on was huge for the Trojans, and they're gonna need him for sure now. And obviously, I mean, I wasn't worried that obviously he had that breakout, broke out, did great. Obviously, combined with Waymo, you're thinking everything's going to be great, but now you can't help but be a little bit worried about what this running back room will look like now that Jordan is, there are concerns surrounding Jordan and his injury.
I'm unsure what the room might look like. I wouldn't say I'm concerned, though, because of what you were just saying about King Miller. King Miller exceeded all expectations. And so if Lincoln needs to rest Waymo to start the year, right, keep him out for a couple of weeks, or if he's just going to ease him into it, whatever it may be, I fully trust King Miller, especially with non-conference play games. I have absolutely no problem if Wayman Jordan needs to sit a couple of weeks. Even if God forbid he's out for the entire year, I still trust King Miller. But the concern to me is obviously, you're not going into the year hoping to be a strong team. You're going into the year hoping to be a competitor. And if you're going to be a competitor, especially with, not the best defense in the country, even if expectations are exceeded, this is not going to be an Ohio State that gives up one touchdown a game. They gave up like 7 or 8 points a game. This is not one of those defenses. So you got to make up somewhere else. And one of those areas is the running game. And having Wayman Jordan and King Miller would be, possibly the best 1-2 punch in college football. And we might be missing out on that. So to be a competitor, this is missing out on something. But to just have a decent run game, King Miller is perfectly capable of that on his own.
For sure. And I think Barry Fisher keeping us updated. Barry, thank you for this information. Waymo had a surgery. It looks like they had to go in and clean it out. Not to worry. Appreciate the clarification, Barry, but I'm still a little worried if, something doesn't go right and you got to go in and clean up something. And look, I will acknowledge I don't really understand how all that works. I've been fortunate never to have a serious injury, broken bone, have to have a major surgery. I think worst thing I've had to do in terms of surgery is have my wisdom teeth pulled and a cyst removed from my face. So, but anyways, in terms of just like that sort of thing, in terms of like something like what it's just still the fact they had to go in and clean it does have me a little bit worried. But hopefully, Barry, I hope you're right, but I hope you can at least understand why I'd still be a little bit concerned. So hopefully things are going to go all right. But yeah, obviously you need and especially when you're going to face some tough defenses, because obviously, like I said, yeah, King Miller did good against Michigan, but Michigan was still kind of down. That's not going to be the case anymore that they have Kyle Whittingham. And I kind of want to talk about that whole situation with Kyle Whittingham. And just, we're kind of talking, just look at just, take a bit of a conference view, Nolan. I think it's kind of relevant, especially because while USC won't have to face Michigan in the regular season, they do well. They could, Lincoln Riley, we could very much see another Riley Whittingham part 4 in the Big Ten championship if everything breaks right for both those teams. So what are your thoughts on just how Utah handled Whittingham's exit? Kind of gave him an offer that I thought was frankly insulting, and then got mad when he's hiring the guys he thinks need to help him. Coaches who, by the way, would have a right to leave for any other job, and you can't get mad at them for seeking employment elsewhere, and most notably in the case of Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator who followed him to Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got to defend coach on this one. I don't think the program handled it right at all. I mean, I think most other coaches would have done the same. At least many other coaches would have done the same thing. You're going to do what's right for you and just what makes the most sense. And unfortunately for USC, I don't know how much we want to be going up against him and possibly rematching in any sort of postseason game or conference championship game, let alone any regular season matchups in the future. So I'm worried. I have too much PTSD from traveling for these USC, Pac-12, Utah games the last couple of years, or rather my first 2 years at USC.
And look, I get
not a fan.
I get they're worried about Morgan Scalley leaving, but it's just like you got to tell the guy he doesn't want to leave. And I get, you know what? I get everyone always aims high when you negotiate, when you try to renegotiate your compensation. Like I get, you know what? Whittingham had every right to say I want 9 million. Utah had every right to say 8 million. I think there was no way. I don't see anything wrong with him saying like, hey, I want my staff to get a little bit more money, and our team needs to get paid. So I can see them being like, all right, we're going to cut you there, but you can't do that to a coaching legend. Regardless of the nightmares we have, you gotta respect that guy and acknowledge that he is a coaching legend. Like, dude's a Hall of Famer. And to just show him the door like that, it's just be like, either just be blunt, honest. Just be like, hey man, look, like, we appreciate everything you done, but we're worried about losing Morgan Scalley. So if you're not going to retire, this is it. I mean, you kind of have to fire the guy, which I get. I mean, you could maybe make it look a bit nicer, but don't give him an insulting offer on the way out the door. Just be blunt. It's like, hey man, we're worried. So, and we can't, although, I mean, honestly, although I feel like the coach in waiting thing gets a little bit worrisome because it's like if you elevate a program to the right spot, you'll probably be able to get a good coach to follow in his footsteps, even if it's not necessarily Morgan Scalley. And the thing you did have with Scalley is he is a Utah alum, so he's not. It's going to take a bit more to pull him away from the Utes.
Yeah, that's something worth thinking about. I mean, I don't want to say the worst thing that can happen, but one of the most disruptive processes I feel like in college sports, especially where NIL is a really big thing. So mostly looking at football and basketball is if you have a coach whose name is synonymous with that program and all of a sudden they're gone. I mean, just look at Harbaugh. Haven't fully recovered since then. Look at ever since Saban retired. Bama hasn't fully recovered. Obviously, they've had success, but they absolutely have not returned
not at the standard that Alabama demands
to that level. Exactly. And so if you know that you have not only a really good coach, but someone who is not going to leave for as long as you do your fair share in keeping him there, you keep giving him the resources he needs, you keep paying him well, you match any offer that another program can give. If he went to your university, if he's an alum and he shows that he wants to stay there, he's staying there until either he retires or until you mistreat him in some way. And so that's one of the most valuable things you can have in a coach, knowing that they are not going anywhere.
Well, I think something that really stands out is Kyle Whittingham is he turned down Tennessee when Utah was still in the Mountain West. Like,
it's true.
Who does that? Like, and Tennessee's always had a strong brand. Like, look at Rocky Top, proud football tradition. And I think he turned them down. It's kind of, crazy to think, but it just shows how much he, wanted to be at Utah and build that program up. I mean, obviously you look at Urban Meyer, who was, trying to look to get to the top as quickly as possible. Nothing against what Meyer did. He did what he thought was best for him. But someone like Whittingham, who just became a staple in Salt Lake City, and to just completely show him the door in that sort of fashion, he's going to be out with vengeance this year. And in some ways, I'm wondering, is the whole coach and Wayne thing, handpicking the successor, does that always work out? Or, as I'm just saying, you see that happen sometime if it's picked up by the coach. If the AD picks it, that's a different thing. Like, I think what Ole Miss did with Pete Golding is a little different. But, I mean, even if you look into basketball, Bruce Pearl trying to get his son, Stephen Pearl, the Auburn men's basketball job, that's been a disaster. They should have given him the interim tag and then probably shown him the door. That's what Virginia did with Tony Bennett's associate head coach. And then after that didn't work out because of when Bennett retired, they got Ryan Odom from VCU, who is doing a great job now. Saw UVA play a few weeks ago. But I think you just look at it as certain coaches, if they've been there a long time and they've always done right by the program, won games, and things aren't, starting to fall apart. Obviously, Mike Gundy probably had to go to Oklahoma State. That was falling apart. But I think Whittingham, yeah, you had the bad year the year before. Maybe he would have retired if that year had gone better, but you don't show him the door, especially when things are still going good, if the guy still wants to coach.
Yeah, 100%. And you definitely don't give a disrespectful offer. That's the other, like if you really need to move on, just say that. But
Just
yeah,
say
I
it and
think
be
we're in
like,
agreement on that.
say it. I'm Kyle Whittingham, knowing from what I know about him, he'd happily make the offer look good on his way out the door. Wouldn't say anything bad, but he also wouldn't. But at the same time, he would then probably still leave for another job. But don't don't like make him don't insult him, and then don't get mad when he goes after other adults who have the right to leave for their job. Because really, can Utah really, yeah, smooth and seamless transition, but what if what if Scally wants to hire his own offensive coordinator? I'm not saying he wanted to keep Jason Beck, but you know, but at the same time, Beck's gonna do what's best for him. And he clearly thought that following Whittingham to Michigan was best for his career.
That's true. Yeah, I had absolutely no issue with giving everyone's adults here, giving other adults the option to do what's best for them, their career, their family, best for all parties involved, at least for the parties that they owe loyalty to. Like I don't get what the problem is with that.
For sure. Definitely a lot more to talk about in the weeks to come. Definitely have more for you next week here on the USC channel, here at the Voice of College Football. This has been USC Primetime Live, presented by FanDuel, and along with Nolan Ezit, I'm Crashlet Collier. We'll see y'all next week. And of course, as always, fight on.